King Kong and the Dignity of Women. Written by J.P. Nunez. Narrated by Ian Schoen. If you do a Google search for the best movies ever made, you'll almost certainly see the original King Kong on just about every list you find. Not only does this film have groundbreaking special effects that nobody at the time had ever seen before, but it also tells one of the most gripping stories in cinema history. Its intriguing characters and fantastic action still hold up almost 90 years later, so it's no wonder that so many critics and filmmakers consider King Kong one of the best films of all time. But in my opinion, these elements are just the tip of the iceberg. This movie has some real moral substance to it as well, and if we delve into that substance, we'll find that it's both utterly timeless and surprisingly modern. The way I see it, King Kong is ultimately about the dignity of women and the positive, almost civilizing effect women have on men. To see how it clearly conveys that important message, we have to take a deep dive into this cinematic gem. A misogynistic beginning. At its core, King Kong is about three characters: a filmmaker named Carl Denham, a sailor named Jack Driscoll, and a down-on-her-luck woman named Anne. When the film begins, Carl Denham is looking for a woman to star in his next movie. At the last minute, he finds Anne Darrow on the streets of New York and offers her the adventure of a lifetime. She quickly accepts, and together they set sail for a mysterious island destination. Jack Driscoll is super misogynistic. When he first meets Anne, they have a brief conversation, and he tells her that women are a nuisance, and that she should stay below the main deck. He's a rough-and-tumble sailor, so he doesn't have time for anything even remotely feminine, much less for an actual woman like Anne. The next time these two characters chat, Jack continues in this same vein, telling Anne that the ship is no place for a girl, and that her mere presence has already caused enough trouble for the crew. Jack Driscoll is simply not a very good person at this point in King Kong. He doesn't have any respect whatsoever for women, and he seems to think that they're inherently inferior to men. But then, something unexpected happens. After Anne walks away from that conversation, Jack has a little talk with Carl Denham, and expresses his concern about their voyage. He wonders what they'll find when they arrive at their mysterious destination. In response, Denham asks if Jack has gone soft. Surprisingly, Jack explains that he's not worried about himself. Rather, he's concerned for Anne. In response, Denham quips that beauty is going to make this tough guy go soft. He then explains that this is the theme of the movie he's trying to make. It's about a beast who was so tough he could lick the world, but when he laid his eyes on beauty, he went soft. This is an important turning point in King Kong, and not just because it shows Jack warming up to Anne. Yes, the macho sailor is showing that he really does have a soft side, and that he actually cares about her more than he lets on, but there's something else going on here too. Denham's brief explanation of his upcoming movie clearly foreshadows what's going to happen later on in King Kong. Just like the beast in Denham's movie, Kong himself is a seemingly unstoppable monster who can lick the world. But when he sees Anne, he falls in love with her, which leads to his downfall. But that's not all. Beyond simply foreshadowing the rest of the story, Denham's words here also serve to connect Jack and Kong. Jack and King Kong. And if you think about it, this makes perfect sense. Sure, Jack isn't a monster that can lick the world, but he's a tough guy who doesn't have an unmacho bone in his body. However, now that he's met Anne, the very same beauty that Kong is going to fall in love with, he too begins to go soft. By being concerned about the trip, he's already starting to lose his misogynistic machismo and becoming a more caring person. For example, when the Venture arrives at its destination, a dangerous place called Skull Island, he suggests that Anne should stay on board until they know what to expect in this mysterious new land. Similarly, after they leave, Jack and Anne have one more conversation, and Jack straight up tells Anne that he's fallen in love with her. But most notably, when the Skull Island natives steal Anne and give her to Kong, Jack and the rest of the crew go back to the island to rescue her. Then, when Kong goes on his rampage in New York, Jack leads the charge to save her yet again. He risks his life twice to rescue the woman he loves, and these experiences with Anne clearly parallel Kong's. After he whisks her away, he behaves pretty lovingly towards her. There are a few moments when he's even tender and affectionate, and he puts his own life at risk to protect her from the island's most monstrous resident. If you didn't know any better, you might even think he was becoming human, and I would suggest that this is the key to understanding what King Kong has to say about the dignity of women. The dignity of women. For starters, Jack and Kong both risk everything to protect Anne, which tells us how valuable she is to them. It shows without a doubt that Anne has the exact same dignity and worth that the men on the venture do, so Jack's earlier misogyny was wrong. On top of that, Anne also has a very positive effect on both of these characters. In my opinion, that's really the heart and soul of King Kong. She softens their hearts and civilizes them, so they both become much better people, in Kong's case a better person, than they were before. Jack loses his misogynistic attitude and realizes that women are just as valuable as men. In turn, he leaves his toxic machismo behind and becomes more than just an unflappable tough guy. He learns what it means to truly love another human being, which, somewhat paradoxically, makes him stronger than he was before. Similarly, Kong leaves some of his brutish, literally animalistic ways behind and begins to behave in a very human way. Rather than simply accept Anne as a human sacrifice as we'd expect, he cares for her, shows her love and affection, and protects her from the other island creatures. These changes are symbolized by the very last line of King Kong, after Kong falls off the Empire State Building and dies. When Carl Denham sees the giant ape lying dead on the ground, someone tells him that the planes killed the creature. Denham disagrees, saying, "It was beauty killed the beast." In a very real sense, that's what Anne did to both Jack and Kong. Sure, she didn't literally kill Kong, and Jack didn't literally die, but Anne killed the beast inside both of them. She humanized Kong and turned Jack into a much better person, and that's no coincidence. Now, it should go without saying that women aren't valuable only because of how they affect men. Rather, they influence us that way because they're so great, so their effect on us simply demonstrates their dignity and worth. It shows that women are just as valuable and important as men, and King Kong is a fantastic cinematic exploration of that important truth on both the literal and metaphorical levels.